Hey, welcome to Life in the Leadership Lane. I'm your host, Bruce Waller, where I get to talk to leaders that are making a difference in the workplace and in our community. What did they do to get started, and what are they doing to stay there? And today, I'm getting to talk to Cid Kotti. Cid is a global human resources executive. I've known Cid for a very long time, and I'm so excited to have you on the show. Hey, Cid.
Good morning, Bruce. I'm super excited to be on the show with you today.
I'm excited to be on the show with you. And I always start by just kind of reflecting whenever I'm talking to my guests. And I always kind of think back about how did I either get to know them or meet them, or where did I learn about them? And for you, of course, it's been in Dallas HR. It's been in HR Southwest. We've known each other for a long time. As a matter of fact, this is actually taping right after the HR Southwest conference, and it's going to be playing the first part of it in November. And so we just got back from the HR Southwest conference. How was it for you?
It was fantastic. It was like a family reunion, and the classes this year were amazing. The seminars were just new topics, and it was fun. The speakers were fabulous, fabulous. It was really, really fun. I enjoyed myself a lot.
I like how you said the family reunion. And for those who might not know, the HR Southwest Conference is an annual conference, the 80th annual conference this year in Fort Worth, Texas, one of the largest HR regional conferences in the country. And we were so excited. There was actually a live event in Fort Worth that we both attended. And then there was a virtual event the following week, which I thought that was pretty neat to have that. And here we are today. The conference is over. I'm now starting to get rested and super excited to have you on the show, Cid. We're going to talk a lot about leadership. In particular, we're going to talk servant leadership. We're going to talk about belonging and a whole lot more. And so before we get into that, I would love to hear you share your story. And that is the Cid Kotti story. Where did you grow up? And how in the world did you get into HR and leadership?
Oh, thanks, Bruce. Well, first and foremost, I was born in the Azores Islands, and my parents in the 70s, early 70s, moved to California. So technically, I grew up in California. That's really what I call home. I was in Silicon Valley proper. So I am a technical geek for sure. I love anything technology wise. I always want to be on the cutting edge. And part of it is just growing up there. You were always on the cutting edge. So I went to school at University of San Francisco, and I actually started to go to college for, believe it or not, occupational therapy. I wanted to help people. I've always known I wanted to help others. I just didn't know how. And so my parents, if I can digress just for a moment, my father was a carpenter and my mother was a seamstress. And so that's how they made their money to come to the United States. My father would build coffins and my mother would build and sew the blankets that go inside a coffin. So when people passed away. And then my father also had a green thumb, so he would graft trees for a living. So let's say you had an apple tree, you wanted red apples on one side, green apples on another. My father would graft a tree and make that tree grow for you with two different type of apples. It was amazing process growing up. I had apples, I had figs. It was just amazing. He had such a green thumb, and he always did that to help others because others knew he had a green thumb. So I always was around people who wanted to help others. And then one day, as I was at USF, a friend of mine said, "Hey, did you know about this class? It's not going to come until the following year." And I said, no, no, I'm graduating. I'm not waiting a year. I'm graduating. And she said, "Well, have you heard of this thing, HR? What? HR, human resources." I said, "What is that?" And she said, "Well, it combines your law that you're so passionate about and helping others." So I went and talked to my counselor, that day I changed my major from occupational therapy to organizational behavior. And as they say, the rest has been history. I just fell in love with HR. I don't know how to do anything else besides HR. So I am just a big fan. I've started in HR in California. I've held every position from the receptionist to the CHRO. And I absolutely love and eat and breathe and walk and talk HR.
Hey, listen, there is so much there. First of all, okay, did you say the Azore Islands is, and so that's part of outside of California?
No, the Azore Islands are
Oh,
9 islands off the coast of Portugal and Spain in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean.
oh my gosh, I love that. Wow. Wow, I did not know that. Okay. I know that now. See, this is all about, I'll tell people all the time, this is about growth day. I learned so much from my guests. Okay, so I'm gonna have to go check that out. That is fantastic. Number one. And number two, wow. So your dad was a carpenter.
Mhm.
Love that. And your mom
Correct.
was a seamstress.
Correct.
And so they worked for, they didn't necessarily work for the funeral company, but they built, like he built coffins and she built made the blankets that go inside or
Absolutely.
sewed them together. Oh my goodness.
Absolutely.
And then, I was actually thinking about, now was that a friend that told you about HR or was that a counselor? Who was that?
It was a friend of mine from
Okay.
college.
So a friend. Okay. No, number one, what a friend. What a friend. Little did,
Right.
I heard Mel Robbins once say, a conversation can change your life. And here you are having a conversation. You don't even know what HR is. I had never heard of HR. And here you are now. It's planted that seed and look at you today. Let's talk about that first. I always like to talk about mentors in our careers.
Yes.
And I would love for you to share just some of the mentors, people that have mentored you along the way, and maybe what made them such a great mentor. Because just like your friend, what a gift that was, just to share what HR was and kind of lead you down that path.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I've had three really major mentors in my life. One was when I started my career. I'm just going to use his first name, Jim.
Okay.
He took me underneath his wing and he really helped me through. So, like everyone else, or not everyone, but most people start their career out in staffing and recruiting, talent management. I was no different. I went from being the receptionist to the staffing coordinator, and he was the vice president of human resources. And he put his arm around me, took me underneath his wing, and really said, "You're going to be big someday." And I looked up at him and I chuckled because he was like 6 feet tall. And I chuckled and I said, "Well, I don't know about that, but let's see how that goes." I was really nervous, but he said, "Believe in yourself. Just keep going. You got this." And then I had another manager a few years later. I was in California. I worked for a company called Nokia. I'm sure everybody knows.
Just a little company.
A little company.
I remember my
And
Nokia phone. It was it was so tiny back in the day.
oh my gosh, those were so awesome, weren't they? I mean, they
Yes.
actually, at one point in time, we had what was called a lipstick phone, and it was the size of a lipstick. It was
Wow.
amazing, and it had a mirror on the edge. And so when you worked for Nokia, you got to see all the phones around the world, and you got to choose which one you wanted. So it was really fun working at Nokia. But I had a manager who said, "There's a position in Texas. You need to apply for it." And I looked at her and smiled and said, "I'm not leaving California." And I said, "I'm not applying to the job." And she said, "Well, you apply to the job or I will apply for you." And I
Mm.
was like, "What?" She said, "I'm not joking. Update your resume this weekend and I'm going to call the hiring manager in Texas." And I did not want to do that. I was very, very scared, but she believed in me and she
Mm.
applied to the job for me. I finally gave her my resume and I interviewed with the team here in Texas. And as they say, the rest is history. So I came over and I actually commuted from California to Texas for 9 months. And then I finally made the jump 17 years ago and decided to come to Texas full time. I love it here. And then I had a third mentor here in Texas. She was also the executive vice president of human resources for North America. And she was amazing. She always believed in everybody on her team. She is the epitome of a team leader, your cheerleader, your rah rah, very methodical, very linear, and hey, if we do this, X happens. So she was a problem solver. She cared for her people, and throughout the organization we were booming. So those three people had huge impact in my life.
Wow. Wow. What a gift. Thank you for sharing that. I got to tell you, first of all, what a commute that was from California to Texas for 9 months. I commuted from Oklahoma to Texas, a 3-hour drive for 4 months. And that was brutal. And I can't imagine a commute from California to Texas.
It was brutal on the family. I'm not going to lie. It was brutal on the family because I was leaving on Sunday nights, going back on Friday.
Yeah.
And so we did that. But I had a little one in school at the time, so it made sense. But it was hard. It's hard on the heartstrings, especially as a parent. It's hard on the heartstrings.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I'm in relocation, and I hear these stories every day, and I have so much empathy for families that are relocating, and especially those that have children and or needs in more than one location. It's just a challenging time, but you got through it. Hey, I'm going to get it. I want to get into leadership and all things leadership, but I want to stop right here. I want to just kind of pull over. I want to talk about something that you all three of these mentors had one word. You kept saying this one word over and over and over, and that was belief. Mm-hmm. They believed in you. And I'm just wondering, what your thoughts are around belief, because, in my new book, I mean, Life in the Leadership Lane, I talk about the importance of belief and not just believing in ourselves, but speaking belief into others. And here these people are speaking belief. Is that what made them such a great mentor for you? And what are your thoughts around the importance of speaking belief?
Absolutely. Them believing in me when I didn't believe in myself, them believing in me when I didn't think I could do it, but they knew I could, them giving me the challenging projects. Everything was around belief, not only them believing in me, but helping me believe in myself, helping me believe that I too could do this, and that I was just as smart and just as quick and just as great as everyone else. And they were just fantastic. They would inject that belief into not just me personally, but the team, that they believed in our team, that we could be successful, that we could get things done. And, I've shared stories with you on my post from Formula One, where sometimes you have to sacrifice for the team. They were great at saying, let's look at the big picture and see where the need is and where the belief is, because sometimes we do have to sacrifice for the larger picture, for the team. And although it seems at the time like it's a big sacrifice, in overall, it's not, right? It's for the greater good. And it all began and ended with belief that we could do it, I could do it, they could do it. And together we all rise. You've heard the saying, rising tides lift all boats. That was really how we believed, was that everyone would be lifted.
That's a powerful quote, because when someone speaks belief, you're right. All of a sudden those tides rise and all of those boats ride, because all of a sudden now they believe in themselves. They believe in the mission and what they're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely.
And what's really neat about that, and what's so fascinating, is whenever someone, here's what I've learned, and that is when someone has spoke belief, when they speak belief into others, then all of a sudden those that now believe are speaking belief into others on their team. And it's just like, it's a ripple effect, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Without a doubt. Without a doubt, it is a ripple effect, and you can't help it but automatically, unconsciously push belief into others, whether it's your children, your spouse, your friends, your team, your coworkers. It's an amazing, contagious, wonderful disease to have.
Yeah. What do you say to, and I'm just thinking, we have a lot of amazing listeners, an incredible HR community out there, mobility community. And I'm just asking, maybe there might be somebody out there that maybe is struggling a little bit with belief. Maybe they haven't don't have that mentor or that boss that speaks belief into them, what would you say to someone right now that it doesn't necessarily believe, not necessarily not believe, but just doesn't have that, hasn't been encouraged and hasn't been spoken belief into them? What would you say to them listening?
Sure. I would say a couple of things. One, this too shall pass. Because when we're down and out, we feel like the whole world's caving in on us. And when we're going through that difficult time where we don't believe in ourselves or whether we have something going on, we feel like it's an eternity. But really, this too shall pass. And that also goes on the positive side too, because when you're celebrating, you've gotten a win, you've written a book, you've hit 50, all sorts of stuff, right? You go through a period of time where you're on a high, but that too ends, right? So this too shall pass is a very, very powerful statement. So I would say to them, this too shall pass, and look in the mirror and tell yourself that it's okay, that you're going to be okay. And you've got this, you know this, you can do it. And if nobody else believes in you, call me. I will tell you, I believe in you.
I love that, Cid. Thank you so much for sharing that. Listen, I think believe, I've had so many incredible people believe in me from the time I can remember, from the time I was a student in elementary school, teachers, parents, coaches, and just friends and colleagues. I mean, my whole career. And I just know how powerful that is. And so I appreciate you sharing that. I know there's somebody listening right now that hey, that just could change the trajectory of their entire career. And so for that, I say thank you. Hey, let's talk leadership 2021. Here we are.
Yes.
Hey, you know what? We are down the stretch 2021, almost heading into 2022. Super excited about that. One of the questions I like to ask my guests, there's so many different ways to define leadership. And I would just like to ask you, if someone said, hey, Cid, how would you define leadership? What would you say to that?
A group of people that trust each other and have a common goal. That would be my definition of leadership.
I love that. I love that. Trust. How important is trust? I mean, that's the foundation, isn't it?
It is. It'll make or break a team. It'll make or break a relationship. I mean, trust is really the keystone of everything we do in our lives.
Yeah, I was trying to think of that. I heard a quote one time, a team isn't a group of people that works together. A team is a group of people that trust each other, similar to what you're talking about. And I think Simon Sinek might have said that, but I just love that. I use that quote all the time because I think trust is everything. And so one of the things I'd like to ask is, we've had some, obviously the last, year and a half, 2 years, we've had a trying time. And I'm just curious how you've shifted your leadership and the way you approach things in the last couple of years. Have you shifted at all?
I certainly have. I think one of the things that I've had to adjust to is listening more about personal life. I tended to keep things very business, very goal oriented, typical type A personality. And I've really had to shift to listen more of the true, hey, Bruce, how are you? And really listen to keywords and really listen to see, is Bruce really okay? And so I've had to shift to that more model. I get accused of being a great listener. So I'm proud of that. But just listening more to keywords and listening more to personal stuff, whereas before I would probably kind of end that conversation a little bit more abruptly or kind of brush it off. And you know how when people go, hi, Bruce, how are you? Oh, by the way, I need da, 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 da. The pause would be very slow. So I've had to learn over the last year and a half, it's okay to have that longer pause, and it's okay to take those extra 15, 20 minutes and have that conversation with that person. Really listen to certain keywords to make sure when they're saying, yes, I'm fine, or I'm okay, or I'm good, are they really fine, okay, and good? So I've had to adjust from that perspective.
Listen, if anyone is listening right now, I just want to encourage you to get out your pen, get out your journal, and take some notes here. There is so much good here. And I wrote down the word listen, and right underneath that, I wrote down the word pause. And I like what you said about that. pause, not pause, like a long pause, right? Hold it there. So people know that you're genuinely interested in the first question is, how are you doing? Right. Because we
Right.
do want to know, don't we?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I kind of ask myself, if I'm asking Bruce or whoever I'm speaking to, how are you? And I kind of just ramble off what I need. I'm just going through the motions,
Hmm.
but really be genuine about it. Really be, hey, Bruce, how are you? How was your weekend? And then pause.
I want to ask you a question because I had asked you before you come on the show. I'd given you some questions and things like that, and you had sent me some different notes, and I wanted to kind of touch on a couple of notes because I thought they were very interesting. I know a lot of us are very focused on this, but sometimes we don't pause to take time. So one of the questions you mentioned is, you mentioned earlier, of course, you enjoy helping others, but you mentioned that you say two things: there's managers and there's leaders. And I heard you define, leadership. What would you say the difference are between managers and leaders?
Well, I would say that managers are doers, right? They're the
Mm,
ones who get stuff done. They're the doers, go, 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 go. Where leaders are really your cheerleaders. They're
mm,
the ones who tend to be more on the problem solving side. They're the ones who are injecting that belief into you. They're the ones looking at the 30,000 level and getting input and collaboration from the team. A lot of leaders I see, some of the mistakes they make is that they think they have to have all the answers to everything. They think that they're the ones who have to set the pace for everything. And that is so opposite of my leadership style. I introduce everything to my team. I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. What are your thoughts? Do you think this will work? What do you think the employee pulse is going to be if we roll out this or that? I love to hear people's input and people's opinion because I may miss something and I like to be very thorough. So this helps me be thorough. At one point in time, I actually created a committee called the Turtle Committee. And I try to implement the Turtle Committee everywhere I go. And what that is it's a group of leaders who either adore change or are anti change. I get them together in a room. Usually it's a sample size, right? So if it's 100 people, I like to have maybe 12 or 13 of us. And any type of change that I'm thinking of implementing into the organization, I present to them. I'll say, hey, I'm thinking of going from front loading PTO to accrual PTO. What are your thoughts? What do you think the kickback's going to be? How's the organization going to react? Or hey, I'm thinking about implementing this new bereavement program. What do you think? Is it generous enough? Is it too stingy? What are your thoughts? And so it does a couple of things for me. One, if you're on the Turtle Committee and you are anti-change, it gives you a lot of time to ponder before it actually comes to fruition. It gives you
mm,
a lot of time to take it in, ask the questions, poke holes in the theory. It's wonderful. For those who love change and embrace it, they run with it, right? They're the ones who are, all telling me all these great things and positive things. And then at the end, what's amazing, and I've seen this happen in real life, Bruce, is the two teams will agree on whatever it is that we agree upon. And guess what? I have 13 cheerleaders
mm.
throughout the organization who are going to run this message and tell people how wonderful it is no matter what, because they've had time to ponder, they've had time to poke holes, they've had time to participate, collaborate, to join and feel included and heard. And
Mm.
so it is wonderful. And so that's my management style. And that's what I love. And I'll ask employees as well. It's not just, the leadership team, but those are a few differences. A long answer to your question.
That is absolutely fantastic. I love that. I'm sitting here envisioning like a turtle. If they don't really like that or want to embrace that change, their head going back in the shell and I love
Right?
that. Oh my God. Hey, well let me ask you this. And by the way, developing sponsors is one of the most important things we can do to develop influence in the workplace, especially for those that are slow to change. And the way you do that is absolutely brilliant. I love that. I know there's some people listening that are going to love that. But I want to ask you this. I'm just going to kind of push back just a little bit. And I want to say, what about the ones that bring up ideas because you're saying, hey, I want everybody's input.
Sure.
They give you that input and then you don't use their idea.
Mhm.
How do you respond to that or help them feel like they're still being heard even though or they belong even though you're not using their ideas? Any thoughts around
Mhm.
that?
Absolutely. I think it's all about communication, right?
Mm,
So if I love your idea, but I can't utilize it for ABC reason, I usually let the person know. So I always embrace that. And I always tell my team, hey, please tell me your ideas. Or if you're a manager, please tell me your ideas, leader. Let's talk through. And if we can't implement it, I let them know why. There's always a reason why we can't do something. Maybe it's the country, company history, or maybe it's been done similarly in the past and it didn't work, or whatever the case may be. I'm always happy to have those discussions because everybody wants to understand why. I thought it was a great idea. Why didn't you use my idea?
mm.
It's yes, can it be time consuming? Sure, but it's worth the investment and time. It's worth talking to those people and say, hey, this was a great idea. Keep them coming, but here's why we can't use this right now. But your ideas are wonderful because you don't want to shut them down, right? That's when an organization stops growing, is when ideas stop coming to the table. So we don't want that to happen. We want people to grow and want people to continue bringing these great ideas to the table. You want to be the employer of choice? That's how you do it.
I love that. Bringing everybody together, communicating, and just letting people know exactly where they stand, where you stand. That's so powerful, so important. Hey, well, you mentioned, and I love that, by the way, the doers and the cheerleaders, the managers and the leaders. So true. But you also mentioned that your style is even more of, and we talk about leadership, we've defined leadership, but it's more of being a servant leader.
Absolutely.
Talk about why you would say that, a servant leader, and why is that important to you?
Because I think everything starts and ends with the employee. So I am absolutely a servant leader, not just to the employees, but to my leadership team.
Mm,
I get the biggest kicks knowing that I'm going to make them wildly successful. So
mm,
as a servant leader, I want my leadership to be wildly successful. And that is going to be different for every single leader, for every single manager, supervisor, and employee. And that's how I adjust my style. I absolutely love making a difference in people's lives. If I could change something in a positive way, both professionally and personally, then I know I've done good and I can go home, look myself in the mirror and go, you did it, good job. And so for me, that's how I focus. I focus on what can I do to help the organization be wildly successful. Next level, what can I do to help the executive team be successful? And that's going to be different for every single person on that team. And then what can I do to help the leadership and the employees be wildly successful?
I
And
love that.
so yeah, it's very time consuming, but it's like I said, the rewards outweigh the work for sure. But it is really great.
I'm glad you said that. It can be time consuming because I think a lot of times we're looking for quick impact or quick change or everything being, we need to get it done now. But yet, some things do take time, don't they? It takes time to develop influence. It takes time to create these opportunities to help others be wildly successful. And I love what you talked about how you are there as a servant leader, not just for the leadership team and the organization, but also for your employees. And that's certainly that ripple effect as well, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sometimes, especially for our employees, a lot of times we just need to listen. We just need to be there for them. As leaders, we just need to pay attention and listen. And it's amazing what we can learn. I try to, at least from my HR team, I try to understand like how people want to be recognized, how people are motivated. And that could be different for every single person. I mean, I've worked with people in my history and my experience where, God forbid, I would on a podcast or in an employee meeting or even a department meeting say, let's congratulate Johnny for doing a job well done and doing X, Y, and Z. They would be devastated, right? I mean, and then I have other people who are like, yes, tell me, yes, I'm here, mention me in public. So you have to understand that, right? You have to really know that. A quick story, and this is a true story. I worked at a healthcare company, I'm not going to say who, and we used to give out kudo bars if you received a outstanding evaluations, right? So the patient evaluation, and if you received all fives, we would put a note signed by the executive team and a kudos bar in your mailbox. I happened to be at an office, and I noticed that this nurse who always received fives grabbed her kudos bar and throw it in the trash. And I thought, huh, that's weird. So I asked the managing director, I said, is she upset she got a kudo bar? No, she just throws them all away. We can't figure out why. And I said, well, has anyone asked her why? No. I said, okay. So I ran over to her and I said, hey, you throw away your kudos bar. I hear that's kind of a trend. I said, why is that? Listen intently, Bruce. It's a very simple answer, but no one had asked the question. She said, I don't like chocolate. Right. So here we are, months into the year, throwing away kudos bars because she doesn't like chocolate. So of course the follow-up question is immediately, what do you like? I like popcorn. So after that day, we would give her popcorn with the little note signed, and you would see her in that office beaming from ear to ear.
Kudos to you. Oh my goodness. That is a fantastic story. I mean, I love how you're talking. I mean, what's interesting about what you're saying, these are all the, Suzanne Myers had her on the podcast one time. She said, this is all the easy, hard stuff.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
It's simple. You are part of our climb group, our online book club, Connect, Lead,
Yes.
Inspire, Mentor, and Build. And I have so much. I enjoy so much visiting with you and getting your perspective. And we actually read the book Everybody Matters. And I remember reading a passage in there, and Bob Chapman had said 88% of employees don't feel like they're valued or heard. And everything you're talking about makes that or helps that employee feel valued and heard, doesn't it? I mean, you're talking about listening, communication, you're talking about pausing, you're talking about, hey, you know what? Asking them what they do like. It's all the little things that make the big things, isn't it?
Absolutely. That is such a powerful statement. It is. It's the little things that accumulate into big thing to make that big win. Absolutely. And the other thing we have to remember is leadership. They too are employees, and sometimes they forget that. And we have to remind them as HR leadership that they too are employees, and it's okay. It's okay to be down. It's okay to have a bad day. It's okay not to listen. But then we have to do all of those things. And so that's really powerful, but you're absolutely right. It's all of those accumulation of the little things that make a big difference.
I love that. Your energy is absolutely infectious, by the way. I love it. Hey, I want to ask you this. What drives you as a leader?
What drives me as a leader? Wow, I have so many drivers, but I would tell you the biggest one I've already stated earlier, and that is the opportunity to make a positive difference in someone's life, whether it's professionally or personally. That drives me. Knowing that I can make that positive difference gets me up in the morning, gets me energized, and I feel so great that I can go in to work and know that I could change somebody's life in a positive way. That is so exciting to me. I get so energized by that. I absolutely love making a difference. I really do. I always have. I love, as I shared, helping others. And to me, knowing that I can do that in my position is a huge, huge energy boost for me every day.
I want to ask you one last question before we pivot to the next area, and
Sure.
that is this: because of your incredible energy and you work very hard. You are a top level leader, but there's some people that are listening today that they want to be a top level leader one day, and I was just curious if you could share maybe a tip or something that might help them either that might help them either remind them or reinforce that you're on the right path, keep doing that, or B, hey, maybe you should try doing some different
Mhm.
things. Any tips you would share that's helped you grow in your leadership?
Absolutely. So in HR, as we all know, we get pulled in a ton of different directions every day, and we could get lost in the tactical very, very quickly. There's always things that have to be done. There's always an emergency happening. But one thing that I find, if you really want to be in the boardroom and you really want to be that leader, you have to schedule time to think. You
Mm.
have to block out your calendar and you have to schedule that time to think. It's really, really important. If you don't have that time to think, you're going to spin and spin and spin, and you're only going to get the tactical done where you want to get more strategic done. So that's one. The other thing is understand the business that you're in. And what I mean by that is, yeah, you're selling footballs and you understand, but how are you making money on those footballs? Okay, how are you making money? What are your channels? What percentage of revenue is coming from what channel? Understand your business, how you make money, how you lose money, what channels are sales channels. Understand those types of things are very, very important. So, I actually learned this at HR Southwest. This gentleman said it so beautifully. I'd known this all my life, but I'm going to share it because he said it beautifully. He said, you have an executive team. So everybody on that executive team has a position and they have their specialty. So HR has HR, operations has the operations, sales, etc. There's one person on that executive team that has to know all the positions. Who is that? Okay, so that's the CEO. So now you have your triangle here. Now it points to the CEO. Now that CEO goes to the board of directors. What happens? Those board of directors are all what? Specialists. They're all operations, sales, marketing. So there's one person. The only other person on that executive team that can help that CEO see the clear picture is whom? Human resources. We're the only other person in that entire room that has to understand the organization from side to side, up and down. And that's why it's so important that we understand P&L. That's why it's so important that we understand how the company functions. It's so important how they make money, how they lose money. So it was an aha moment for me during HR Southwest when this person shared that in those words. And I am using his words exactly verbatim because he said it so eloquently. And although we've known this as executives, it's hard to put into words. And he just dummied it down to what I just said, which was fabulous because you're like, oh my God, I can totally relate to that. You're right. I have a COO, I have a CIO, I have a CRO, I have a CEO, and you have all the C-suite, and they're all specialized except for your CEO. And then your CHRO is the only other person. And that was so powerful to me. It was like, you know what? I've been practicing this, but I didn't know how to put it into words. That is fabulous. I can't take credit for that, but I wanted to share that because that's really important. If you look at it from that lens, you see that you are the CEO's right-hand person.
That's
And
that's such a great perspective. I love that. And it also reminds me of the value of getting outside of the workplace and going to a conference or going somewhere else to learn or talk to someone and hearing it from a different angle. And all of a sudden it makes that light even brighter to that. I love that. And especially when you start talking about footballs. I'm as a
yes.
big football fan. No, actually, when you said understand the business, I would immediately Barbara Hoover's picture came into my mind, and Barbara Hoover was one of the facilitators for for my HR certification back 10 years ago.
Mhm.
And the very first thing she said was, you got to understand the business,
Absolutely.
understand the
Really
not
do.
understand HR. You got to
That's right.
understand the business. Isn't that true? Yeah.
Absolutely. Because all the rest is tactical HR stuff.
Yeah.
We have to get the tactical done and we have to do it well so we can move to that next level.
I'm glad you shared that, because, it's what you're saying again. That's the easy, hard stuff, like to block time when you've got
Right.
all these. I'm pretty sure you have a long list of things you got to do, and you got to block time. And then all of a sudden you have these urgent things that start coming at you, and to be able to discipline yourself to continue to stay focused. I want to talk about just your typical day. Because I mean, I mean, what is Cid Kotti? I mean, like, what does your day look like? I would just, and I want the listeners to hear, like, for you, you're very, very busy. You're talking about, even blocking time for thinking, which I absolutely love. Share just do you have like a practice or something you do in your everyday that helps keep you on track? Like, what time you get up in the mornings, and what's your day typically look like?
Absolutely. I get up at 4:45 in the morning. I'm out the door by 5 a.m. with my little love of my life, my little fur baby Bill. He is a Texas Blue Heeler. We go on a minimum of a 30-minute walk. I usually listen to a podcast. For me, it's a Bible in a year. I absolutely love that. Set my day right. I believe in a higher power and set my day correctly. I love to hear the scripture from the Bible, and then I may come home and do my thing, shower, get a cup of coffee, and then I really think about the day. I think about what has to be done, which is great, and what's a priority. But then what are the thinking projects? I do my best thinking in the morning. So I like to block time off in the morning to think, okay, if I have a big project, what's the next step? Who does it impact? How will the company accept it? What are we going to do? Things like that. So for example, simple that everybody can relate to, if I was going to revise the employee handbook, for example, I would probably do that project in the morning for a couple hours because that's where I do my best thinking. It's quiet time. I can think through, okay, we're a multi-state employer. Do I want to use an addendum or do I want to put asterisks at the bottom of every page? Simple stuff. But I've learned that an addendum always works best. So I would no longer put asterisks, right? So, things you've learned along the way. But that would really be kind of my day, and then I get into some of the tactical stuff, and then I like to close my day by thinking through, okay, what was important that didn't get done that needs to be done as a P1 tomorrow, and again, a little bit more thinking time. So maybe in the morning it might be 2 hours of thinking time, and then in the afternoon it may just be 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and really kind of do that. And then you close your day. I have a child left at home, so one more to go. And so when I get home, it's game on, right? There's no more HR Cid, there's just mommy Cid, which is great. But as HR professionals, let's be honest, we're always on 24/7. So that phone is always nearby. But I would say that's, kind of my typical day. And, in HR, we always say there's really no typical day, and that's true. But my mornings, like clockwork, are always very typical. You can always guess that I'm having a cup of coffee at 6 a.m. and thinking through some things.
I'm glad you shared that, because, and that's one thing I have observed with all of the high performers that have been on Life and Leadership Lane, is that they all do things a little bit differently, but yet they all have a system. Like
Sure.
like in the morning, they get up, they have whatever it is they're doing, they have a system. And that's the key. And that's what I want people to hear, is that it can't be random. It's got to be, you got to have that system. And a lot of times, what I enjoy about sharing perspective from other high performers is that people that are listening can kind of pull and try different things to see if it works for you. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. Just keep trying and figure out what works. And when you find what works, then just do that every single day. And I love that. Hey,
Absolutely.
let me ask you this. And I always like to ask this question, and that is, Have you ever been given some advice that, and maybe it came from a family or friend or a colleague or one of your mentors? It was so good. You just find yourself sharing that with others regularly.
I'm chuckling because it's something that I've already shared on the podcast, but I'll add a little bit more to it. So one is don't give up. Don't
Mm,
ever give up.
mm,
That's number one. And number two, the thing that's kept me going when things are high or things are low is this too shall pass. And that
mhm.
is such a powerful statement, and people don't really understand that until they go through it. But this too shall pass is an amazing statement, and it's very near and dear to my heart. So when things are ugly, I kind of take a deep breath and I go, okay, this too shall pass. It will. It might pass like a kidney stone, but it's going to pass.
It might be a little bit painful. I will tell you that that's powerful. That is absolutely powerful. We've all been in a situation where we're like, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing ever. I remember feeling like I'm going to be fired from a job. I remember feeling I lost an account. I remember I said something I shouldn't have said. The list is endless.
Right.
But I got through it. It passed. And so you share, like, there's probably somebody listening right now. I don't know who that is out there, but there's somebody listening right now. They're going through a very challenging time.
Mhm.
And that statement right there just may help push them through.
Absolutely. I hope so. It's helped me push through a lot of sadness in my life. It's helped me just know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. I will tell you, probably the most horrible day in my life is when my daddy passed away. And I remember, I just remember saying to myself, it's very painful, but this too shall pass. And although it's been a few years, I still cry, I still get upset, but I remember this too shall pass. It eases, right? So when you go through it, you think like it's never ending. So, but it does, you ease. And no matter what it is, it could be a work thing. It could be like you made a mistake at work and you think you're going to get fired, and it's a horrible thing, right? It's a horrible feeling. But in the end, this too shall pass. It will pass. I didn't say it was going to pass easily. I said this too shall pass. Sometimes, you got to remember, like a
Right.
kidney stone, there's some pain involved, but
Yeah.
it will pass.
Oh, I want to ask you this, and this is the final question I have before we go to It's Time to Accelerate. And I want to ask you, for those that are, and by the way, I have chills. This conversation has been so good. But there's some people that might be listening that this remote work has really ramped up, hasn't it?
Yes, yes.
And there's a lot of people that are working remotely and they're
Sure.
having a challenging time staying engaged,
Mhm.
or just being a little bit isolated. How you have any thoughts around what might help with maybe trying to challenge them to engage, or what they can do to kind of take that away and feel like they belong or feel more part of the team
Mhm.
being working remotely? Any thoughts around that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would put that back on the leader. So I think one way that a leader can really engage their team to feel more connected is at the beginning, perhaps, of every meeting. Take the first 10 minutes and go around the room and just say, hey, how was your weekend? And listen to what people say and engage them in conversation. If somebody said, hey, I went and I went to the Formula One race this weekend in Austin. Oh my gosh, how was it? It was an okay race, by the way. Well, sidebar that, but engage people in what I call the water cooler conversation that you would have in person, but now you're just doing it via Zoom or via Skype or Teams, anything like that. But anything to keep that personal relationship going. And I also would tell people it's okay to reach out. It's okay to pick up the phone. It's okay to have a Zoom meeting with other people. It's okay. It really is okay. And don't let yourself fall so deep in the hole that you get depressed that nobody's talking and you feel like you're in a black hole, because looking up looks like it's a really hard hole to climb out of. But there's a lot we can do to connect. Also connect with people. If you're going to the grocery store, connect with your grocery store clerk. It's amazing what I learned from my grocery store clerk. Oh my gosh. I mean, connect with your post person. It's really amazing. So, also it's a two-way street, right? Your manager can only do so much and the leaders can only do so much. We have to do our part too, as employees and as human beings. We have to reach out and touch somebody as well. And just think, even though that person may be feeling sad or down or in a black hole, you might reach out because you took the initiative, you reached out, you might touch somebody who was also feeling that way. And because you did that, that person now feels good and you feel good. And now this positive energy just built between the two of you. And guess what? That's going to be passed on. So it's a really great approach. And sometimes we have to take the initiative as well.
Man, that is so good. That is absolutely so good. I love how you use the grocery store clerk. I was at a conference recently in Chicago for Worldwide ERC, and then the guys that were checking the badges, just a little fist bump with them, said,
Yeah.
hey, and it just like, I could feel their energy level go up. Like they were just standing there looking at everybody's badge. And then I said, hey, I had gave him that fist bump and it was just electrifying. So you're right. And I always like to say, if you want engagement, you got to engage. And
Absolutely.
we just got to figure that out. So no, listen, I appreciate you sharing all of that. I guarantee you there's going to be some of that information that's going to help some people that are listening. And for that, I say thank you. Hey, we're going to shift over to it's time to accelerate. We're going to ask you a few questions.
Okay.
I know we're getting close to Thanksgiving. I always like to start. Actually, I know you mentioned you listen to a podcast. Would you rather listen to a podcast or would you rather read a book?
I would rather read a book.
You would? That's good. Oh my gosh. Any good books that you've read, like one book or that you've read over the last, I don't know, 6 months?
Well, I got to tell you, our book club read it, Climb read it, and that was Tony Bridwell's Saturday Morning Tea.
Oh,
Once
so
I picked that book up, I literally could not put it down. It was a lot like your book, Life in the Leadership Lane. Oh, may I tell a story about your leadership book? Just 1 second about my son.
The floor is yours, Cid.
Oh, I've got to share this with your listeners. So my son is 10 years old, and I was reading Bruce Waller's book called Life in the Leadership Lane. And I had laid my book on the table, walked away to go get water. I come back and my son had picked up your book, Bruce, and he started reading. And I can't remember the chapter I was on, but he basically turned around and said, Mommy, I think your friend is funny. And I said, why is that? He goes, look, he just mentions all this stuff here on this page. And it was things like be consistent, show up. And then he goes, Mommy, can I take this book to school and it be my reading book for the next few weeks? I said, absolutely. And so 10 years old, fell in love with your book, Bruce. So great job there. Great job.
Okay. I have to ask, what is your son's name?
His name is Simon.
Simon. I'm a big Simon fan now. Oh my gosh. That is so great. 10 years old, reading leadership books. Seriously.
Absolutely.
He's going to be successful.
I hope so. I hope so. And then one other thing. So they had a substitute bus driver. He takes the bus to and from school, and he had a substitute bus driver, and him and the neighbor, I go wait for them at the bus stop, and they said, oh my God, that wasn't our regular bus driver. And I said, well, where is he? We don't know. And we started talking, and I said, so your normal bus driver then isn't so bad? No, not bad at all. I said, great. I said, well, when you guys see him, hopefully tomorrow, I said, tell him, hey, great to have you back. We missed you. So indeed, they did that. And it made this bus driver's day. He has smiled and acknowledged them every day since then. And they didn't know how to break into him. They're like, gosh, he never responds when we say good morning or bye in the afternoon, or, and I think he thought maybe that they were just trying to be sarcastic or something. I don't know. But he was very reserved. And because they said, hey, we missed you, glad you're back, he absolutely now acknowledges them. So it's such a cute little story, but he got that from your leadership day of show up, be there in person, acknowledge people, lift them up.
That is so fantastic. Oh my goodness. Simon, if you're out there listening, I'm a big fan. Keep leading. Keep learning, keep growing, keep encouraging, keep lifting people up. I mean, that's a recipe for success, isn't it?
Absolutely, it is
Yeah.
indeed.
Yeah. Oh man. Thank you for sharing that. I love that. I
You're
love
welcome.
that. Hey, well, let me ask you this. We're here, we're getting close to Thanksgiving. And I was like to ask, what are you most grateful for, Sid?
I am most grateful for my friends and family because without them, I would be nowhere. I absolutely adore my friends and family. They have lifted me, they have carried me, they have cheerleaded me on, they have encouraged, they believed in me, all of those wonderful things. So, that, and of course, my higher power, which I call God, because God has given me a wonderful spirit and wonderful people in my life. So, that is what I'm thankful for.
I love that. Oh man, I'm so grateful for you. Hey, well, let me ask you this. We're headed down the stretch. We're going to get into 2022. What
Yes.
do you like? What are you excited about around the corner?
I just want to change the chapter for 2022. um, I think there's a lot more to come on that. We've had the great resignation as is happening. We have labor shortages, and so I'm hoping that in 2022 we as a community from an HR perspective can come together and help each other overcome some of these challenges. I think that's what I would love to see. I think sometimes HR people, we tend to be a little bit competitive against each other instead of helping each other and lifting each other up and encouraging. So I'd like to see a little bit more of that. I think together we can make a difference.
Together we can make a difference. You are right on track there, and that is so good, so good. This has been an amazing podcast conversation. I'm so grateful. I have one last question that I want to ask you, and this is by
Sure.
far my most favorite question. And the question is, Sid, 10 years older, she is knocking at your front door, and you're going to get up and go answer that door. What is she going to tell you?
She's going to tell me it can be done. You did it. You're going to be able to do it. Don't quit. You can do it. Never give up.
Yeah, I think that's such a great message. I can hear her telling you that now, and I can see you saying, "I won't give up. I am going. I am here. I'm going to keep going." I love that. You're definitely driving in the leadership lane, and so for that, I say thank you. Thank you so much for sharing today. If someone wanted to connect with you, they heard something you said today, they want to learn more. How
Sure.
is the best way for them to connect, Sid?
On LinkedIn, they just need to find Cid, CID, Kotti, Kotti, on LinkedIn. I'm the only Cid Kotti, I believe, on the whole entire LinkedIn with that spelling. So yeah, connect with me. I love to connect with people. I love to talk to people. I love to, brainstorm and collaborate.
I got to tell you, I have really enjoyed our conversation today so much, and just the talk around belief and belonging, and just helping people feel like they're being heard. And it's just been so uplifting, and I cannot wait to share this. And so for that, I say thank you for coming on the show, sharing your wisdom, your perspective, and most importantly, thank you so much for your friendship, Sid.
Oh, thank you, Bruce. It's such a pleasure to be on your show. I am so honored and so excited. So thank you. And I too treasure our friendship very much. So thank you.
I cannot wait to share this. I'll talk to you later.
You got it. Thank you.